Welcome to the Ruby Dungeon, a series teaching how to code Ruby scripts that can be run with the Lich program. You may hear me use the phrase Lich Ruby. This is just my way of expressing the Ruby programming language with some extra Lich functionality built in. When you code in Lich Ruby, you can use Ruby code applicable to the version of Ruby you have installed, and you have access to a set of Lich commands that are useful in creating complex scripts. These scripts can perform tasks that directly apply to an online multiplayer text-based adventure game called GemStone IV. This RPG started in the late 80s and is still going today. Fans of the other online text-based game Dragon Realms, Ruby scripts can be created for that too. Please know that some Lich commands we will learn in this series are specific to GemStone IV, but the Ruby language commands will work in both. A gemstone lich command or variable example would be Char.name. That tells Lich Ruby to replace that line of code with your GemStone IV player name using a built-in feature called infomon. If I were to type Char.name in a standard Ruby set of programming code, it would not have the same effect since the default Ruby doesn't know that we're trying to interface with a GemStone IV character name. That's where Lich steps in and connects the dots together. Another way to look at it is if we have two friends. One is Kevin, a chef at a famous 3-star delicatessen. The other is Flatflorp, a visitor from planet Neptune. If we ask Kevin to make a peanut butter jelly bean sandwich, after deeply sighing, he would attempt to locate the needed ingredients, such as bread, peanut butter, and jelly beans. If for some reason we were out of jelly beans, he may decide to go to the store and get more, or use an alternative, like honey. He would start off with inherent knowledge of how to accomplish the task that you're asking him to complete. Maybe there is no such thing as bread, peanut butter, and jelly beans on Neptune. Sorry to any Neptunians out there. If we ask Flatflorp to make a peanut butter jelly bean sandwich, they might have confusion or some follow-up questions. So in both examples of Lich and Ruby, you could create code or provide instructions for how to make a peanut butter jelly bean sandwich. The Lich version would just be faster, since it already knows how to do some things that you might want to do. Some humans have the gift of knowledge for certain things through education and life experiences. When you're writing code, do your best not to translate assumptions, as the computer will be very literal. It doesn't know that you may have said peanut butter, but you actually wanted Nutella, since that was the only thing in the cabinet right now. A main part of the coding mindset is to account for all the various scenarios of what might happen if our intended request is not able to be met. For example, with Kevin, if there was no jelly beans, they might go buy more or just use honey. Even if we gave Flatflorp instructions on making that sandwich, they might still have confusion again when they realize there's no second ingredient available. So you have to create instruction for what Flatflorp should do if there's no jelly beans. This is why learning Lich Ruby can be a great lead-in to learning more advanced Ruby commands down the road, or even branching off into other programming languages. Once you learn one language, you'll pick up coding techniques of how to manipulate data and solve logic problems that you can take with you. A different language may have alternate syntax, but it's still completing the same objective. Give me more salad, please. Dame más ensalada, por favor. And in computer terms, if you like salad and have hunger, ask for more salad. All of these statements can still achieve similar results, depending on who or what is interpreting the stream of data. So if I have not lost you so far, awesome. In order to learn Lich Ruby code, you'll need a couple of things, including some software. First, you need a GemStone IV account. They're free. You can sign up at play.net/gs4 and check out Player Guide Episode 1 for help with this. You need the Lich software and Ruby software installed. The previous episode of the Ruby Dungeon walks you through this. If you're a brand new user, just skip to the timestamp 5 minutes and 10 seconds in that video. You need a text editor. I recommend Notepad++, however you can generally use any program that can edit a text file. I still occasionally use the Notepad editor that comes with Windows to make quick changes. If you do plan to use Notepad++, consider going to Settings, Style Configurator, and choose Twilight as a theme. It's easier on the eyes to me, but if you see a different theme you like better, go with whatever you want. In order to see your theme in action, you will need to go up to Language, Choose R and then click Ruby. Your current text file will change to match that theme for Ruby. To create a script, you have to write it. To write one, you have to know the commands. To know the commands, you have to read and/or listen. Everything builds on everything else. Learning to code takes a lot of free time. You really have to want to do it in order to see results. Prepare to spend lots of time problem solving. You have the potential to learn new commands every time you open a script someone else wrote. Use that to your advantage and be willing to immerse yourself in learning from what is already established. Then translate that learning into your own personal projects. Before you run a script, it's good practice to read it first to see what it does. You can accomplish this by opening the .lic file in Notepad or Notepad++. Control+F will find a keyword, and there are some phrases you should consider looking out for. We won't be able to cover every scenario in this video, but here's a couple to take away. First up is repository. This means the script is using the repository for something. I use this when a user invokes the huntpro update command. Next, we have download. Download usually pairs with repository. It's also used for the huntpro update command. You may also see update or updatable. This is a command that causes certain scripts to auto-update when you launch your gaming session. Another command that pairs with that one is auto-start. This will cause scripts to run when you launch your gaming session. Silent and quiet can further impact how a command executes. Silent could stop you from seeing the command being entered via the script, and quiet could stop you from seeing the response from the game. All of these are completely normal to use. The purpose of this is to make you aware of what some scripts could do, sometimes without you being completely aware. Things could happen when you run a script for the first time, so look before you leap. The best way to make a new Lich Ruby script is just to go to your scripts folder, right-click on a .lic file that already exists and copy, then right-click in a blank space and paste. You'll get a copy of that file name, and you can just rename it to whatever you want your new Lich script to be. Now go into your text editor and open that new file name. Use Ctrl-A to highlight everything and hit your delete key. Then use Ctrl-S or click File Save. Now you have your very first Lich Ruby script. Congratulations. The other way to make a new script is to open Notepad, type some text, file save as, change your type to all files, then name your file as name.lic. You'll also need to make sure that you navigate to your correct scripts folder so it saves in the right directory. If for some reason the file saves as .txt, it's not going to work, and you're going to have to start this whole process over. That's why I prefer to just copy-paste an existing file and give it a new name, since it's already in the right place and the right file format. If you were to type your script name, your script would run and then immediately exit because it's a blank file. You told the computer, do nothing, then exit the script, so that's what it did. Let's learn some code. First up is the £. This is a comment character. A comment is when you want to write something inside your file, but you don't want the computer to do anything with it when it sees the text that immediately follows the £. When programming, generally everything you type is considered a command. You will use £signs for various reasons, and one example is helping to keep track of what your code is doing at a certain point in your script. So here's some code. £, this is a comment. If I put that code as the first line, save, and then run the script again, nothing happens, because you're still telling the computer to do nothing and then exit. So what if I did not have that £sign there? Go ahead and take it out, save it, and run your script again. And we got an error. We're lucky in this error because it tells us the banana script at line 1 has the problem with the code, this is a comment. You don't always get the full answer in an error report, but it can help you narrow down what the issue is sometimes. As you write code, you should constantly be saving and testing your work. If you spend 3 hours writing code, then test and get errors, what line of code in the last 3 hours was your mistake? Now you're wasting time trying to find out what went wrong, where it was, and that could lead to a realization that you now have to rewrite several blocks of code, which could add even more hours to your project. So as you're learning, write, save, test, write, save, test, write, save, test. It's one of my best practices. The reason the pound sign is the best command to learn first is you can hide several lines of code from the computer when you're trying to find an error. I could comment out what I don't want to run, and now the computer will only execute code it can actually see. Our next command is echo with a matching pair of quotes. This will display the text you put inside those accompanying quotation marks to the user only when they run the script, along with your script name. This can be useful if you want to give yourself debugging messages during a certain part of your script. An example would be maybe when testing a combat routine and you want to know what variables are active when you swing at a creature. The data or text that you type inside the quotes is considered a string. A string can be a word or series of words, and possibly sometimes numbers. A string is always captured inside quotes. Let's do echo, hello, I am your script. Now save and run. It should output, hello, I am your script. Another command is called respond. It works similar to the way echo does, but when the text is outputted, it doesn't show your script name. Let's add another line to your script, just like echo, using respond instead. Go ahead and run that and see how it outputs. As you build your script, you should add comments either above your commands, to the right of, or maybe even below, although that last one might get confusing. The purpose of commenting is to document what your code is trying to do. Comments can be helpful if you ask a friend to look at what you wrote. If you left good notes, they should be able to follow along with whatever you were trying to accomplish. How you put your code together and what it visually looks like is really up to you and your artistic expression. You can use pound signs to create all sorts of various aesthetic layouts. All of these three examples do exactly the same thing. There's an astounding number of ways to accomplish the same goal in a coding environment. So we learned that pound sign ignores what you type on that line and is for writing notes inside the script or making the computer skip portions of code. Echo and respond only display text to the user. No one in the game world will ever see what you write inside those type of commands. Let's learn a new command called put. Put is another string command, so we have to use a matching set of quotes to go along with it. Put, open quotation, smile, close quotation. This will type the smile command into GemStone and hit the enter key for you. Go ahead and test that out if you want. Now let's immediately forget that command and use fput instead. It works mostly the same, except Lich is expecting a certain kind of response internally and will handle the command better. If we compare these commands side by side, you might notice put just sent the command and then quit the script, whereas fput waited until you smiled before exiting. Put appears in several coding languages, including Ruby, and fput is a Lich thing. So if you're making stuff for GemStone IV or Dragon Realms, just use fput. Remember we talked Char.name as a command Lich would understand? Go ahead and try to type it inside an echo or respond and run your script. It just said Char.name? Did I trick you? No? Well, maybe. You have to tell Lich the thing you put inside that string is an actual command to execute rather than thinking it's just plain text. To do this, you format that command with pound sign, open bracket, command, close bracket. Here's an example on screen. Go ahead and run that, and it should output your name now instead. We've learned a lot so far, but let's cover if statements. These can be written in different ways too. Generally, after you open an if statement, you tab indent the next line. It helps other humans read the code. The computer is going to ignore the space regardless. If you open an if statement, you will almost always close it with an end, and preferably one that visually lines up with the if that started it. There is an exception, and we'll cover that in just a minute. This code is saying, if your character name is equal, using the double equal sign, to the exact string value of Lassie with a capital L, you should respond with "You are Lassie" to the user. But if your name is not Lassie, see if it's Pork Chop. And if that is your name, respond "You are Pork Chop." And else means that if all the above options don't match your situation, do this as a final catch-all. Here's another way to write the same thing. When you use a semicolon, Lich Ruby will read this as the next line starts now. I'll also point out again that capitalization matters. Lowercase Lassie is not the same as Lassie with a capital L, and it's definitely not the same as Lassie in all caps. All of these start with Lassie, but the computer will read that line and be specific to what I'm requesting and ignore everything else. You might ask, can you tell the computer to look for different variations? Absolutely, and we'll get to that in a future episode. You can write things as fewer conditions or even one line of code. If you write a command and follow it with an if, the computer will not require an end. This is the exception I was talking about. It knows to only fire the command you typed first if the condition is true. Either way, both of these blocks of code will do the same thing. As your knowledge expands, consider revisiting old code and think of how you could improve it. This extra practice could help solidify your learning so that you're more efficient in the future. The more time you devote to reading, writing, and testing your code, the more syntax examples you'll learn, and that can help you write better programs down the road in any language. Next time on the Ruby Dungeon, we'll learn about the Lich scripting reference page, the new enhancements made to Infomon, and show more coding examples from my Hunt Pro script as we learn more commands in Lich Ruby. See you then.